Hi, hello, welcome to Philly Jazz Talks. I'm Suzanne Cloud, and I'm project director of the Philadelphia Jazz Legacy Project. This evening, we're going to be talking with three musicians: writer and musician Tom Moon, singer-songwriter Lili Anel, and bassist-composer Nick Krolak. They all will be discussing their use of the streaming platforms Spotify and Bandcamp. And we're going to be discussing how these platforms benefit or hinder the efforts of musicians as these musicians try to make a living creating and playing music. Tonight, in essence, we'll be exploring the changing face of the music business, which, since I started in it, has changed quite a bit. But before the storytelling gets started, it's important that you know that these jazz talks are brought to you by the Philadelphia Jazz Legacy Project. We're an organization whose mission is to establish a permanent jazz archive for the Philadelphia area and Philadelphia area jazz artists and the community at large through recordings, video interviews, manuscripts, and material culture like photographs, programs, posters, anything that relates to the Philly jazz community and its history. I'd also like to thank the Philadelphia Cultural Fund for partially sponsoring these talks and the people and attendees who support us with their donations and who's been supporting us throughout this series since we began it in during the pandemic. We appreciate your support so much. To get a reminder of our events and other Philly Jazz Legacy work, please go to our website at phillyjazzhistory.org and sign up for our monthly newsletter. You get all kinds of nice tidbits. So let's go on to tonight's guest. Let me give a little bit of background. First and foremost, here is the writer Tom Moon. He's a saxophonist, very well known to everybody in the area, especially for his New York Times best-selling book, 1,000 Recordings to Hear Before You Die, and his work for the Philadelphia Inquirer, National Public Radio, Rolling Stone, GQ, and many other publications. He has won 2 Deems Taylor Awards from the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, and he performs locally with his group all over the place. His popular Substack, Echolocator, of which I am a proud subscriber, is a monthly essay that inspired this Zoomcast tonight. I happened to read it and I said, oh my God, we have to talk about this. So Lex is our technician, our loyal technician that's with us every time we do this. Would you play a little bit of Tom's playing with his group? beautiful, beautiful.
Loved it.
Next on our description here is the singer-songwriter Lili Anel. She's a Philadelphia musician, originally hailing from Spanish Harlem in the South Bronx. Lili's songs are snapshots of life drawn from observations and personal experiences creatively reimagined. She blends elements of jazz, folk, soul, and pop, and has released many albums over the years, including Last, Every Second in Between, I Can See Bliss from Here, and Better Days, which was remastered in 2021. She's a past nominee for the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage Fellowship, and her music has been spotlighted on NPR. I am a personal great fan. I have all of her albums. We are both devotees of Jeff Lee Johnson. And I'm so glad to have you here, Lili. And go ahead, Lex. Why don't you play us a little bit of Lili here?
Take it from me. You can't tell me what to do. 'Cause when I'm through, I'm through. I agree. The world is round. Although I've fallen off its edge time and again. Should have known better. Could have done better. Taste the booze. Should have known better. And now I realize I didn't have a clue. Take it from me. A friend is a friend until they're not, then it's the end. I agree. You're just a fake, a fraud. All you do is take, that's what I saw. Should have known better. I should have known better. Trust in you. I could have done better. I should have known better. Now we're through. Hello. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Take it from me. Never, 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 never do you wrong. I'll just sing my song. Take it from me. Always be a friend until the end, until the very end. Take it from me. Oh, never, 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 never do you wrong. I just sing my song, I sing my song, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I love that, Lili. It's so funky. It's fabulous.
Thank you. Sat here with my eyes closed. I hate seeing myself.
Uh, oh, I just love that. But all right, next, I'm showing these videos because I definitely want to make everybody very well aware as we're talking about these streaming platforms. So we're talking about very serious musicians here. That music is their life. They're not doing anything else. They're not working in a factory, and they're not, maybe they have some side hustles, teaching and that kind of stuff, but music is their life. So that's what these little music videos is trying to, I'm hoping will convey to you. Last but not least is bassist composer Nicholas Krolak. He's a veteran of the Philadelphia jazz scene, and definitely has paid his dues working as a sideman, experiencing new styles, and studying with the masters. Writing for WRTI, Philadelphia's jazz and classical station, Matt Silver says that Krolak is, quote, a different kind of songwriter, perhaps a different kind of jazz musician altogether. He's like the bass playing modern embodiment of Walt Whitman. And just as Walt used his prose poems, Krolak uses his music to celebrate and also to reconcile the competing and contradictory nature of the two worlds he straddles, the natural and the urban. His new album is called Voice Equals Power, which is also the name of a podcast which he hosts, where he's interviewing people in the jazz world, pursuing one particular question: how does an artist find their voice? And in a way, that question says a lot about what we'll be discussing tonight. Lex, let's hear a little bit of Nick's work. All right.
Can I
So
say
now that we've,
something?
huh? Yeah, what?
Nicholas, I love your work. I have to say it. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you
Oh
so much.
God, man.
Yeah,
I've
man.
got his album, which I haven't bought. In fact, your album, Nick, I bought because I thought it was going to force me to buy a record player since I haven't had one for a while.
Yeah,
I haven't gotten it yet, but but I'm getting there. So I did get your CD
awesome.
because I do have a CD player. Anyway, yeah, his work is all your work
Man.
is fabulous, guys, and that's what's important here. Now I'm going to start off with Tom. We know that Bandcamp was sold recently sold to what was it, Epic Games, and then they immediately sold to Song Trader,
Hmm.
and then laid off 49% of its staff. In your echolocator Substack essay, and I encourage everybody to find Tom's Substack and definitely subscribe to it. I mean, he's introduced me to folks I never heard of before that I just love now. I mean, Tom, you've got such a wealth of knowledge. But anyway, in this particular Substack on the Bandcamp sale, you wrote that music is being devalued and it's not accidental. It's baked into the architecture of streaming. What do you mean by that?
Well, we all know that there's a price to create music, right? It takes money. It takes music to make music in a way that will reach a listener is an endeavor that requires some commercial investment. It has value to the creator. What has happened since streaming is that that value is not communicated to the consumer. And we have a situation now where the world believes wrongly, but they believe it. And there's been a whole bunch of businesses, not just Bandcamp, not just Spotify, that have basically said, music, it's all here. Go get it. It's free. And what that has done, what that the change that that has brought is it's a multitude of changes. The first is it basically changes the value proposition for an artist because it then becomes harder to actually derive any sort of a return on investment that you would have from recording. So you're in the red before you sell one copy of anything, and you may never get out of the red. And that is not a way, that is not a realistic, sustainable model. So value, the idea of music having value has been eradicated in our lifetime. That's something that it will, future generations will look at this and they will see it as a historical moment when the universe said, yeah, let's go get it. We don't have to pay for it. So all of these things that we're tracking now, the sale of Bandcamp, first of all, being seen as, sort of a lesser evil, shall we say, than say Spotify, simply because it was a direct to consumer idea anyway, that you could basically set up a little storefront within Bandcamp, and some of the money that you would get from each sale will come to you, and it does, it works. It is not, however, the equivalent value that there was in the physical brick and mortar sales of units of a work of music. So part of what we have to grapple with is 30,000 feet up and existential, which is we are in a business that no longer has a very squishy idea of what value is.
I talked to some people before this broadcast, some musicians that I know, and there are some people that said, well, we don't really care about that because it's great for marketing. There was some way I could not put that together, Tom, and I could throw this out to Nick and to Lili too. Uh, is 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 the value in marketing your music via those free streaming sites, or almost free streaming? Is that worth it, or does it make up the difference in what you're losing?
Let's talk to Nick about that.
go
Uh,
go ahead, Nick.
it does not. Especially with streaming, you kind of you. It's almost impossible to make back your return on investment through streams, just because they pay so little. And unless you're talking getting millions of multiple million streams a year, then that will add up to something. And there is I think the idea a lot of people have is that if you just get a mass of streams, somehow that will translate into sales somehow, but it's largely not going to. And I've seen this a bunch with other artists that I know and myself who have gotten on, like the holy grail of the streaming world is getting playlisted.
Right.
And I've known people who have gotten major playlists, and myself have gotten major playlists, and yeah, you get tons of streams all of a sudden, and yeah, your paycheck goes up a little bit, uh, but you almost see no sales. It's all people who are just content listening right there, and why would they get the physical copy of the thing, um, or otherwise pay you. And also, a lot of the streams come from just passive playlists. Like you have like things like coffee time jazz or study time
Yeah.
ambient music, and a lot of those artists you'll see with like millions and millions of streams. And I know a pianist who got playlisted on several of those kind of like coffee time jazz type playlists, and he saw like 250,000 streams a month, right? Which one doesn't translate to very much money. It was like a couple $100. And two, he had maybe 10 new followers out of that. It's like those okay.
And we have to add that the other participants in those playlists are often these people that are really, they're not having the same kind of artistic goals. They're almost the AI model artists where they're only gunning to get on those playlists. You see that with classical music a lot. There's the top line classical pianist that we all know, and then there's a whole nother culture of people who do not have name recognition, who may or may not be able to really play the repertoire, but they are bulldogs about getting playlisted on these things, and so that's their career. So that's another way in which value gets muddied. It's like, what are those people really doing?
Yeah, Lily, you jump in here. Give me your feelings about how have
I
you used it?
mostly use Bandcamp to be able to have a place where people could buy my CDs and they can get it directly. It gets directly from me, or they can download digital. It's like a contact. It's just a hot mess. I mean, it's gone
Yeah,
from I don't I just people here in Philadelphia in the United States have buy my CD, and it's gone as far as I've had people buy CDs from Europe. I've gone as far as Europe and as far as Japan and as far as the Eastern Bloc, the far, far, far away country like Estonia. I forgot how much I had to charge for shipping for one of those countries that they bought a whole stack of my CDs, which was great, but it's minimal. Although I think for me, that's better than the streaming. I get my royalties, I'll get paid, and the check is for like $4 and change. And then they send you the file with the list of how it was divided. It's pages and pages and pages long that if you look at it, you say, wow, I'm getting a check for $50,000 in my dreams. Okay. It doesn't happen. So I would prefer to just, if I could, sell the CDs from my website. Some people are loyal. It's like, well, if you're not selling it through Amazon, they don't want to go to Bandcamp. They
Yeah.
want to, oh, is it
yeah.
from Amazon? I don't know why they're afraid of Bandcamp. And they just go to Bandcamp. You can even do digital download. Um, I'm from the old school when I first started to play music. Like you got on a label and the label pushed you and you had a publicist and you got on the radio and you went on tour and your tour was commensurate with the radio shows you did in the different markets where you performed. My debut CD, which I just sat and thought about it the other day, is 31 years old and it was released on Palmetto Records. And
Yeah.
well, Palmetto's no more, but this whole streaming thing, I don't know.
And now with I've been exploring some of the AI.
It's that.
I know, and it's frightening, and it
I'm
really,
waiting for somebody to do that to me so I could go. Mm.
yeah. But well, it's changing. The whole business has changed so quickly. Um, Let me ask you, all of you, this throw this out there. I mean, how would you tweak it, or would you just throw out this whole particular paradigm that we're working on now that nobody likes except the people making the big bucks? I mean, is there any way that there could be ways of responding to this sort of this sort of business, the way it's really abusing? I think it's undercutting the music community to a point where I know my first record was on the Encounter record label in 1996. I know, yeah, 1986, excuse me. It was an LP. That was just as the CDs were coming in. So I've gone through all these changes, and I just don't feel any even. Somebody says I did a gig the other night, and they said, "Hey, Suzanne, when are you going to record again?" And I'm looking. I said, "Why? Why? Just do live gigs, because if you record, it's a lot of money, and you don't know what to do with it once you have it. So can some of you speak to that? I mean, how are you adjusting to all this?"
Well, I think in one hand, it's a great opportunity to be subterranean. And I feel like the above ground music industry that we have now, this world we're talking about of streaming, Bandcamp, and an entire ecosystem that says the creator, that doesn't have the creator at the center of the ecosystem, that is not a model to chase. Period.
Right.
It's a model to junk. But be, beneath that and beyond that and around that, there are plenty of people that are doing very small things to document their work and to make their work resonant and meaningful to a community. We have I get records from the UK that where they print up this band called Ill Considered, which was a trio, now it's a larger group, but their print run was 200 vinyl records. Okay, that's nothing. They could sell that out in one tour of 5 cities in the US. And when it was gone, it was gone. And the idea was, you like what we do, here's how to support it that way. And the economy of that makes it work for them. I don't think that works for everybody, because not everyone can play live often enough to sell 10 or 15 units at a gig, but it can work. And I feel that what's needed here is a reframing of the idea of value in the largest possible sense, and for artists to feel not disempowered by this business structure, which is gonna keep going the way it's going. This news at the end of the year from Spotify basically saying, if you don't reach a threshold of whatever it was,
1,000.
1,000 plays or
Yeah.
3,000 plays, that basically says you are a rounding error. And those spreadsheet type royalty statements that Lili talked about, those are more, it costs them more to do it than it does for them to pay out what they should pay out. And we can challenge that all we want. We can sit there and cry and whine about that, and we should. But in the context of a system that doesn't accrue value to the art itself, and it has no consideration for the artist, we need to find other ways to work. And I think there are some models.
All right. Well, tell me.
Well, this one, this ill-considered idea, this band, and there are a lot of other people that are doing that, making everything exclusive and boutique. I think Nick is on this in his strategy for how he releases music, not trying to hit everybody over the head, but really trying to understand what the audience is and develop within that group a shared sense of community, because music is a circuit. It depends on not just the however many people are on stage, but the people who are in the room. And we need those people to feel value as well and valued. And that's the whole thing. Everything's a short circuit now. We have a culture in the United States where the music experience for most people is either hundreds of dollars to go see the Rolling Stones or Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
or somebody who's playing for free on the street. And there is not much in between.
All right. Well, Nick, tell me how you're marketing this voice equals power thing. Tell us
Yeah.
what you conceptualized for that.
Sure. So I operate basically like an e-commerce store. And I do a lot of research into what e-commerce stores are doing, and I try to adapt it to music, and some of it translates over and some of it doesn't. So if you're to think of a e-commerce store, something, say someone who sells custom t-shirts online on Instagram or something like that, I'm sure we've all seen that. Um, and basically everything translates over to music pretty well, including price points and limited edition runs and kind of marketing tactics. There is one flip to it though, and this is, I think a lot of musicians get hung up here. So a t-shirt, someone's selling t-shirts online, say they're selling funny t-shirts, say some witty pun with a picture on it or something. You might see that online and just go, oh yeah, that's funny, and just buy it. And that's it. And that's the last thing you ever do with that company. You have no emotional connection to them whatsoever. You just bought a funny shirt, the end. So the t-shirt company might have an easier time getting initial sales, whereas a musician will have a much harder time getting the initial sale. But once somebody buys something and has a great experience with it, and oh my God, this is my new favorite artist now, that's going to carry way longer. So the musician has a lot more work to do up front, whereas the t-shirt seller has a lot more work to do on the back end, if that makes sense. And I
Uh,
think a lot of musicians kind of give up at that first step, then they go, oh, this didn't work, the end. Or don't try to iterate after that. So um, that's it in a bigger sense. I can go into as much detail as you want about it, but I'll stop there for right
well,
now.
one person I interviewed, and I did drop into a Zoomcast from a couple of, I don't have their names in my head right now, from NYU who were talking about this kind of thing. And they said, well, you're supposed to make your money off of the merch. And I don't know, the whole time I've been in the business, I never thought selling a t-shirt was going to be my way of communicating my artistry or my music or anything like that. How do you feel about that, Lily? A lot of people are saying you have to sell merch now or else forget it. You're not going to make any money.
I've been struggling with this for the past year, and it's changed what I'm trying to do. Who am I? And that's the first thing I ask. Am I a seller? Am I a business person in that way? I'm going to sell these glasses. I'm going to sell this phone. I'm a songwriter. I studied music. I went to university. I continued to study after I got out of university. I cut my teeth performing in clubs in New York where I was born and raised. And I come from a time when it was like you're the artist, you're a musician, you concentrate on doing that. The business is run by other people. Of course, the record labels are corrupt and the managers are corrupt and the agents are yada, yada, yada. But the concentration is on that. For me, I had this conversation with Cassandra Wilson in 2013. Cassandra used to have a venue in Jackson, Mississippi, where she's from, and she had me perform there a couple of times, which was one of the highlights of my life. And all this was beginning to start to snowball, the whole streaming thing. And she and I were talking, and she said to me, you know who's going to be left standing? You and me. And I said, how's that? Says, because people will pay money and they will see us on stage and we deliver, and we could do it live as well, if
Yep.
not better, than on the record. That's who's going to be left. You perform, they like it, they'll buy your CD. I recently was added to a show kind of last minute with 3 weeks in at the Keswick. Finally, I got to play at the Keswick. I opened for legendary singer Peebo Bryson, R&B singer. I sold I know, ridiculous. I sold all my CDs that night that I brought with me. And I was like, I actually made money selling the CDs. And it was because those people, they didn't know me. They heard me for the first time. They liked what they heard. They bought the music.
Yeah.
And that's buying the music and buying that kind of merchandise. T-shirts, you know,
Right.
if the person's dead, you want the T-shirt. I don't know. It depends. I want to hear the music. I don't want to look at it on a shirt. I mean, I'm not putting that down. That's the latest thing. And that's the thing. Everybody can do it. And everybody's doing it. It's like everybody and their mother I have Bandcamp and makes a record. And it's horrible. I'm just giving my own opinion. And everybody's on, oh, I'm streaming and I'm on Spotify and I'm on Thisify and Thatify and Uify. And I'm like, I quote Groucho Marx too. I don't want to be part of a club that would have me for a member. I don't want to be lumped in with all of that. I just don't know. I know I probably sound scattered and different from the norm of what everybody else is saying. I'm a musician. I'm a songwriter. That's what I want to put out there. My dream is to share it with the whole world. I know that's huge. And the big names that are out there get an opportunity to do that. Some I think deserve it. Most I think don't. Yes, that's how I feel about it.
Well, I think this is there's so many different component parts to this problem. Another thing I've thought about with the streaming is also how it's removed how radio stations used to promote your work. When I started out, that's how I saw the radio would play my
Right.
record, and then people would go out to the
Me
record
too.
store and they would get it,
Yep.
and or on my gigs. And now that's all been disrupted. And so now people go to stream your stuff if they hear it on the radio. I don't know if listening has decreased. Tom, do you know anything about that balance between streaming and actual um, listening to certain DJs on jazz radio or any kind of radio?
Any kind of radio. I don't know hard numbers, and I'm sure there has been a drop, but I don't know to the degree of it. And also nowadays we're in this world where people time shift radio and they use it on their computers and they can get to certain shows. There are I listen to radio from Brazil that I can basically find whenever I want this particular guy who's a crate digger in Rio. And there's a lot of that. So it's not as bleak that way as you might think. However, what's more, I think, more to the point about music discovery is the great thing about radio was you'd be driving along, you were not necessarily at a record store, and you were captivated by music and had to know what that was.
Right.
And if you're just absent-mindedly streaming, you might get an artist name, but you really have to work and you have to go outside of Spotify to find out who's playing on a record. And that is a hard stop for music discovery. Basically, the Jeff Lee Johnsons of the world lived and died by the credits on the back of the albums.
Right.
And we're talking about really everyone at every level of the business needed that little bit of it's not a bump, it's just a credit. It should live with the tracks and travel with the tracks so that someone goes, who's that playing that slide guitar on this? I
Right.
need to find everything else they're on. And that is the way that people consume music. And music is it goes like this. It's a spider web. And if you know one little piece, you can go find the next little piece if you know about someone else. And this the streaming world basically says, you're on your own. You got to do your own Google search. We're not going to help you. We're not going to help the artists and the people who make the artists sound great by making it easy for you to discover them.
In a way, that's going back to really early jazz when nobody was identified except the star on a record, and you had Yaleys going out and finding out who was on each record, and they had discographies up the wazoo. Um, but like you're right, Tom, it makes it so it's so darn hard to create any kind of a way of finding your way through a certain kind of music, whatever kind of music it is.
There are people in Nashville that live in recording studios. They play for different artists all the time. They used to be able to get work, cold calls from young artists that wanted that sound because they found it on a record. And those potential gigs are drying up because the artists are not credited in a way that people can find them. It's a huge problem. It's related to value. It's the same thing. If you value music, you're going to tell the world who made it.
Well, I want to tell everybody who's attending this, if you want to ask questions of any one of our people here, please write it in the chat, and we will get to it at the very end. Right now, we're coming up on quarter to the hour, and I wanted to find out from all of you, where do you think it's going? I know AI is pointing to a very, very destructive place, and but part of me, I'll throw my ideas out. I think it's going to go back to small gatherings in people's homes and performing in almost like not chamber music, but being in a small room with families who hire you and have you
The
at
salon,
parties and huh?
like the salon,
Like
like with
Andrew
Andrew.
Right, like the
Clearfield. Yeah.
salons. And maybe that's, and then you sell your stuff there when you get those. How many of those kind of gigs you could get and sustain a life, sustain a family on this? Because right now no one can sustain their family on what they're making on streaming. All right, now wait a minute. Here's someone, Colin Monty. With the new world of streaming and social media, has the music industry become more or less egalitarian? Thanks in advance.
I think I'm going to take an unpopular stance, and say that it has become, in a way, more egalitarian, because you can directly sidestep gatekeepers. I released my Voice Equals Power album in 2020 on a major New York record label that did absolutely nothing with it. They didn't do a thing. I was clearly not their top artist. They did not care about me. They went through the motions. They put it on stuff. They got a couple reviews, the review you read being one of them, and that was it. And they sold maybe 20 copies in however many, 4 years, and since then myself have sold, I don't know, I'm probably around like 5,000 CDs or so since May. So I just went right to people. Hey, this is a thing. Do you like it? And people go yes or no, and that's it. And there's no like gimmick to it. It's just, do you like this thing? And you can do that repeatedly every day while it's just going on in the background. Like, I'm selling records as we speak.
Are you now? Do you have? Is it able to sustain you living day to day?
Not yet, but it will.
All right, we have another question here, Tom. Do you think we're sort of back? This is from Jack McCarthy. Do you think we're sort of back in the 1950s days of indies versus majors, when the indies were finding all the underground cutting edge artists and the majors were just focusing on mainstream artists?
Yes. And that, I say that while acknowledging what Nick just said, and that is that anyone can be an indie artist now. And the major labels have no interest in creativity whatsoever
No.
on any front, in any style of music, in any genre. They are not interested in finding the next Tom Waits or the next Sonny Rollins. That is not their game. They are in the Taylor Swift game, and it's all or nothing for them. And that's fine. They got the money to play in that sandbox, and they believe that sandbox will continue. But what you said about small gatherings, and Jack's question implies that some of the people that are being found and that are sort of making their own way, like Nick, are doing it independent of any sort of structure. That we will have indies that will help people and that are, that are making really smart choices about signings. There's a punk label in LA called Anti Records that signed James Brandon Lewis a couple years ago. He's made 2 very interesting records for them. He's got another one in the pipeline now. And when you see that, you realize his economy is not that much different from the total indie economy. He's not depending on this small label for his livelihood, but they are doing some of the stuff that artists should not have to do at all, which is the marketing, the publicity, the promotion, this idea of framing what an artist does. It is a full-time job developing a sound and a signature that you can bring to the world. And when you're someone like Lili, who's done it for a long time and have that, you know how hard that is. Then to add all the other businesses that every independent artist has to do, it's almost like you could have that as a full-time job and never create another thing. It is a full-time job. But then you never create another piece of work because you're so busy feeding this beast. And that's just out of whack and wrong, I think.
All right, well, I'm going to start with Lili.
I'm sorry. Having said that, that's why I've decided in the past years, like, I just want to perform. I write music. I'm going to record it when I can, because that's also costly. If you want to sound good and put it out there and maintain the level of artistic integrity that you've had. But it's overwhelming. It's just, I find it overwhelming. And then we haven't even discussed venues and talent buyers and that beast. That's the beast with 3 heads. Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Well, we've got 10 minutes to, let me ask you all what you see as a way to try and ameliorate what's happening to artists. And for me, I kind of dropped out and just went into scholarly pursuits, teaching in the archives and Jazz Bridge and that kind of stuff, because it just got too tiring for me to try and fight. It's like you're walking against this horrible headwind and you can't get through it. You just can't. And so what do you guys envision, whether it's something that you're thinking of doing, like Nick has been kind of structuring his thing around nature, his work with the outside and that kind of stuff, and his music, and as far as how you're going to push your music forward, or how you think the music business and the music industry needs to change to accommodate the future creativity of American music. Lili, you go first.
There isn't enough time to really answer that question. But for me, the only thing I can say I'm thinking of doing, first and foremost, stay true to myself, keep writing and keep being the best songwriter I could be, and singer, keep my voice in good form, perform. I've taken up photography and learning filming, actually. And I have thoughts. I'm not sure that I want to do it, because it's almost on some level the same thing but different, and it's the same beast with another set of heads, of making like a video biograph and telling my story of my life. I don't know who would want to give a hell about that, but actually include music and writing with that, and maybe just putting it out every couple of weeks, something short, not really long. It might be interesting to some. I know for me, it'll just keep me going. for me, and learning that that's the most important thing. It feeds me first. And I'm just at a point in my life, I'm not starting out, so
Absolutely.
I don't know what the answer is. I think you're on the right track with what you say, Suzanne, about house concerts, as I do a lot of those as well. And that's fantastic. Gatherings at people's homes, and
Mhm.
take out a tip jar, they feed you. And sometimes I've made a whole lot more money there than any venue gig. So I think if we stay creative and true to ourselves and not turn out to be, nothing against Taylor Swift, she's very good, but that big machine type thing, do you, and that's honest, people will get it and it'll go far, I think.
Yep. Yep. Amen.
Nick, what do you think?
I agree with a lot of there's kind of been a sentiment going around of that kind of like smaller, more intimate, more of an experience. I
Yes.
think that's like there's a lot of forms of value, and money is just one of the forms of value. Um, and the more you can stack value into what you're presenting, um, and experience is a valuable thing to people, a unique experience and a personal experience, a intimate experience. The more people will trade money for that, and that is a thing that the Spotify's and the AI things can't ever provide. You know, if we're those things commodify music, and commodities are by nature like a zero sum
Right.
situation. So we can't play that game. You can't out Walmart. You know.
Very well put.
Well, that goes, yeah, believe it or not, back in the 60s, Amiri Baraka was saying that commodification of music was destroying it. But well, I don't know, is there any kind of organizational, maybe union activity that could fight some of these corporate changes that is undermining the music? Tom, I'm going to throw it your way.
No,
No.
no, we don't need another organizational level. We don't need anybody who's writing grants on the art on behalf of artists who will never see the benefit of the money that those grants bring. We what everything what we seem to agree on here is that taking it taking control of what we can control. What the artist controls is the experience, this idea of bringing something that has value, holding on to it for ourselves, which I came from the other extreme. When I started to play music after covering music for 20 years, the first thing that I really had to adjust my like it was like I had to change my look. I had to reframe the way I looked at things and realize that the entire apparatus that I had been covering was useless to me and was actually in the way of creative work. And that was that was true then. It's more true now. None of the people that are in the business end of music, I shouldn't say none, but the vast majority of them cannot stick their heads out far enough to help an artist while also keeping their gig. And they're worried about their gigs. And that's not wrong. That's human nature. But what we can do is remind wake up in the morning with the intention of bringing beauty and love and energy and the circuit of music into the world, and not having it be a to-do list that includes begging and pleading with people who don't have vision to for permission to do what we do. Those people do not give you permission. We can take that permission for ourselves.
Well, Tom, you're describing the vision I'm getting in my head is the record companies and the streaming companies, they're basically parasites on the creators.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And where we're going to see it is wait 10 years when all the Eagles are dead, when all the members of Led Zeppelin are dead, when there are no more touring acts to fill arenas, and or very few, a handful. The coming apocalypse and the reckoning for those people in this business is when they've spent so much of their lives on the classics and they have not tended their garden. They have not cultivated music as music. We need people to engage music on a one-to-one, walking by a space, hearing us, hearing someone playing, and responding on the visceral level to that sound. We have no hope. The minute you get the phone involved, you're swiping. You're making judgments that are not. You're not letting anything under your skin. You're bulletproof when you have your phone. Yeah, right. We need to get people where they're open a little bit. We need to pry people open.
Yeah, well, that's going back to what Lili, and really going back to the very beginning, live performance and dealing with people one-on-one and small groups, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting to the end here. We do have one question here. Are any of you familiar with the strategy some artists have used when they release the album for purchase weeks before they release it to streaming? There's a band called Nowhere that did this, and they made more money that way than on any of their other albums. I doubt that this is a viable long-term solution, but I think it's worth mentioning. Anybody want to comment on that?
Yeah, I heard of this, and I feel like this kind of goes with what Tom was saying, like in the very beginning about making limited runs and pressing 100 vinyl and be like, that's it, this is all there is, and that is just using scarcity as a motivator, which is a very powerful motivator. And I think it's a pretty good one. And you could, so a thing that I've been doing with my CD sales is basically the same thing of an album that I don't have fully released yet called River Song, that when people click on the posts or ads to buy Voice Equals Power, it goes, hey, you're here. You want this too? Which is a thing that people are very used to now. That probably may not have worked a while ago, but people are very used to seeing that on the internet. All apps have like recommenders. Just think of going on Netflix. It's, oh, you like this show? What about that show?
Right. There's AI again, though.
Yeah. But Lili, were you going to say something, Lili?
No, my comment, my feeling about it is, and then what?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then what? And you have to wait till the next, I don't know. I've not done it. Maybe I'll try it, but then, okay. I mean, it's not just all for the money, but none of us exist off the air we breathe. There's rent, there's mortgage, there's food, there's insurance, there's doctors, there's dentists. Yeah. I need new underwear, I need a new pair of shoes. That's all I'm trying to say, the basic, so that you can be alive to do your art. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Well, Tom, you want to add one more thing before the end here?
No, that's she just said it all. Lili just said it all.
I think this was a really terrific conversation, and I'm hoping to have more in the future, because I think this is a work in progress. I would love it to end up down the road where there is a formula, some kind of creative formula that's discovered where we can't be so easily stolen from. And we're such marks. I just got an email today telling me that Pandora is now getting sued for copyright infringement because they're playing all kinds of stuff and not paying anybody for it and making money from it. So So I think that whole thing, I mean, the corporate question is easily figured out. They're going to go to the lowest common denominator to make the most amount of money. Stop. That's full stop. But there's must be a way that musicians can figure out. I mean, if Tom says the unions won't work in this situation like they worked in the past, you really don't think they'll work, Tom?
I don't know. I mean, it would require a different kind of union than we're used to having. And uh, what what I would add, just to talk about Philly for a second, is we take for granted the incredible health of the music culture that exists here. That there are a lot of amazing creators in this area that are all essentially contending with the same thing. Not every place has that, and that's part of the scarcity model that Nick's talking about.
Yeah.
And it can be made to work to our advantage as a whole, as a union, as some sort of collective. But it it seems like that's a mountain too.
Yeah.
And the minute that you have that kind of a structural thing, then you have costs that are associated with that. And there's a lot of dollars, a lot of people clamoring for the same dollars in the, you know better than anyone.
Yeah.
That and this is it. This is a money problem. This is a consciousness problem, and it's a value problem. And we can't change the consciousness of the music world and the music consumer at large, but we can change our approach to that and insist that what we do has value when the industry says otherwise, which it is doing now.
Well, I want to, that's a great thought to end on. I want to thank you all, Tom, Lily, Nick, for doing this with me today. And it's been wonderful. Thanks to the people who came. This will be shown again on channel 64 and on our YouTube channel. Lex, you want to put up here are some important URLs: echolocator, substack.com, which is Tom Moon's essay, where you can read his essays on music and all kinds of different ways to relate to the music he's looking at and exploring. Lili Anel's website and Nicholas Krolak's website as well. And definitely purchase their music when you're on their website, if you rather than going to Spotify and listening to it there. Purchase their music. Last one little tile there, Alex. Your tax-deductible donations will help the community build the Philadelphia Jazz Archives, so we all can enjoy them. And the way to find out more about what we're doing is to go to phillyjazzhistory.org